And I'm gonna pin. Welcome to Union Sports, Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk Live, episode 3. We got a streak going on, guys. Episode 3 of our brand new show, almost a month old, I guess. Well,
yeah.
21 days, 14 days, whatever the math is on that. If you're new to the program, first off, how dare you not be here the first couple of weeks? And second off, I'm your co-host, Andy Kretzinger. This is my main man, Hunter Moeller, and I almost called you Hunter Cecchini. I almost gave you a football name there, Fairfield football. But we're going to talk a little fall sports, a little life, more fall sports than life, really.
Yeah, exciting week.
Yeah, exciting week in football, volleyball, cross country, and all that good stuff. So we had a busy weekend in football, Hunter, and you were at one of the best rivalries in our area, Washington and Mount Pleasant. What'd you see?
Well, of course, as many people may know, Washington walked out of that one. A pretty dominant performance by the Demons in that one. 54-20 Washington. The Demons scored 14 points in the first quarter, added 19 in the second. Mount Pleasant did score 8 in that second quarter, but second half, once again, Washington just poured it on again, 14 points, and then 7 again in the fourth. And Mount Pleasant was able to score 12 in that second half, but Too much Demons on both sides of the ball in that one. And, we have some familiar names that kind of led the way. Ethan Patterson had a great night with his arm and on the ground. He threw for 130 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ran for 123 yards. Taven Stewart, another big night for him. We talked about him, really finding the end zone a lot in that first game. And well, tonight he ran for 194 yards and added 3 more touchdowns. So starting the season off right with him. Receiving, Jude Brown had 3 receptions for 73 yards. And then the defense was just stifling. The Washington defense was stifling. And we're seeing that defense is really, really picking up here in the early season. Mount Pleasant just couldn't get the run game going. I mean, they only finished with 30 yards rushing. And, I will say I am impressed with Jacob Brickman. I know you know a lot about, the Mount Pleasant kids. And Jacob Brickman, I'm pretty sure, if I remember seeing it right, he is like 5th in passing in Class 4A passing yards, and a lot of that's because they have trouble getting the ground game going. But he threw 41 times in that game, completed 31 of them for 281 yards and 2 touchdowns. So pretty good performance by him. But another big win for Washington, and Mount Pleasant still searching for their first win. So. We're gonna see what's gonna happen this weekend, this Friday, because we got some more exciting games coming up.
Yeah, we'll get to the game I was at last week in a second. But on the way back, I put Mount Pleasant, Washington on the radio because it was a little later game. And on the radio, you could hear both student sections going back. It sounded like it was a loud place, as it usually is when it's Washington and Mount Pleasant. So, So I'm going to, before I start talking about my little rivalry game I was at, we're going to chat about the Fairfield Trojans. So Fairfield fell victim to the comeback kids all of a sudden in Ottumwa. Last week, Ottumwa was able to shock Oskaloosa with a late comeback. Fairfield was up 9-0 at half. They were up 16-7 at one point in the second half, and Ottumwa came back, beat them 22-16. The second straight real close loss for Fairfield in that little battle, the little 34 rivalry, because I think Ottumwa beat them 7-0 last year. So Tate Allen was pretty good for Fairfield. He had a couple of touchdown passes. He found Max Wheaton for the first. Kaysen Miller for the second 32-yard score, by the way. That's a young kid who showed off a lot in baseball for us. And wrestling. He was a state wrestling qualifier. But you can kind of see him kind of shining in the passing game. They got some speedsters to go along with Wheaton as far as the people that Tate Allen can throw it to. But it was 16-7. Ottumwa came back, scored a couple times, 22-6. Fairfield got it down inside the 25, I believe. They've definitely flirted with the red zone as time was ticking down. Ottumwa picked off Allen there in the closing seconds, and so it was a tough one for Fairfield. It looked like they were going to be 2-0 going into this next week against Fort Madison, but it's sometimes the teams get the little magic, and I guess Ottumwa's got that magic. It's really rare to have 2 games where you in close games and you're winning them. And speaking of teams that have had 2 close games and won them, I was in Wellman on Friday night for Sigourney Keota and Mid Prairie, and I think last week on the show we talked about how It was going to be a battle of the ground games,
It
and
did
it
not
definitely
disappoint.
did not disappoint. It did not disappoint. Sigourney Kyoto likes to run it a lot with their single wing. Everyone knows that. Jake Moore, I thought, did a good job of stepping in a quarterback. He scored. So Mid Prairie took this one 23-20, but it certainly wasn't the ideal start for the Golden Hawks there in Mid Prairie because they fumbled away the opening snap, and immediately Sigourney Kyoto scored. Jake Moore ran in a touchdown run from 13 yards. And then Mid Prairie had to start grinding away. Braden Hartley had another huge game for Mid Prairie. He ran for 219 yards and a touchdown, and they fed him 33 times. So it was run on run on run. But the big plays for the Golden Hawks happened in the passing games. Colin Miller threw the ball 3 times. Only 2 times they were positive yardage, and both those times they went for touchdowns.
Wow.
So 2 passing touchdowns for him. He found Kane Brown on a really, really nice play down the sideline, which was a huge touchdown in the second half. Brown sprung open kind of on the right. He said that, I talked to Kane afterwards, and he said that the old tight end Grady Gingrich ran such a good route that he just kind of flung, open down the sideline. Struck, that was a huge touchdown pass. And then Miller also had a 4th down touchdown pass at the end of the half to Gingrich. So those were 2 pretty clutch plays, in Mid Prairie's 2-0, and Sigourney Kyoto, they had a tough game against Durant last week. This week they had a chance at it. They still ran for 267 yards themselves. Isaac Bruns had a couple of big breakout runs, including a touchdown. Cole Clarahan had 83 yards. So they flirted with a win there. They had a chance at the end, but Mid Prairie takes it. And so that was the first time in the last 3 that Mid Prairie has won that rivalry game. So a little ground and pound action from the Golden Hawks. So
Always great to see those teams, go at it up there, because they're kind of, they're like, I think I kind of mentioned last time, they're kind of like those, perennial teams, and mostly kind of every sport you see. I'm obviously Sigourney and Kyoto pair, 2 different schools there, but when you see those teams go at it, it's going to be a really head-to-head, battle back and forth. So
yeah, and when you're in close quarters, Mid Prairie is real close to Kyoto, but that's a game you want, even though it's a non-district game. It's obviously when you want to win. And Sigourney Kyoto has been so good the last couple of years, just dominating regular season games. That single wing has dominated some of our teams that are really, really good. I remember Cardinal came in there last year, and I thought Cardinal had a chance to knock them off, and that offense is tough to stop, so Mid Prairie did a good job on defense. By the way, I have to apologize, Hunter.
Uh-oh.
To our loyal watchers who I misled last week when I called Sigourney Kyoto versus Mid Prairie the backyard brawl. It is not the backyard brawl. Sigourney Kyoto versus Pekin is the backyard brawl. When I let it out, it was like an interception when I let it out. I knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
Went back, checked. So my promise to our watchers, viewers, listeners, readers, this is my promise. On Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk, we will never make another mistake again.
You shouldn't have said that.
Never, not one more mistake. So we pride ourselves from now on. Last 2 weeks, we've prided ourselves in how many mistakes we can make from now on. How many mistakes? I also apologize for my shoes being off at times last week. Anyway,
I feel like you're setting us up for failure with our comments.
No more mistakes. No more mistakes. By the way, I also apologize for my voice. Last week I didn't have my shoes on. This week my voice is gone. So every week something's going to be gone. Hunter, why don't you start us out with our other area teams for football?
Yeah, I mean, last week we had a lot of big time games, and I guess I'll start out with New London getting their first win. Tigers hosted Tri-County, and really had no problem with Tri-County in this one. I believe it was up in the 40s. New London was up in the 40s at halftime, and they ended up winning at 42-0. So big first win for the Tigers. Good for them to kind of get on their feet there and get that first win. Dom Lopez led with 4 total touchdowns, 2 through the air and 2 on the ground. He ran for 94 yards, he threw for 94 yards and rushed for 60. And Bowden Pickle, Blaze Porter, and Brigham Porter all scored touchdown. So big win for the Tigers, and I will say we're kind of seeing a different kind of offense with the inclusion of Blaze Porter back in that offense. I know he took a punt return to the house, so they got a big matchup coming up this week. We can talk about that here, but first big win for the Tigers.
Yeah, and they kind of ended that momentum for old Tri-County because Tri-County had a big win before that. So also in Class 8-player, the number 2 team and still number 2 team. I almost sounded like Bruce Buffer there. And still number 2 team and the 8-player. Waco, 60-14 over HLV. Same story, different day. 3 games for Waco. They've dominated all 3 of them. They've scored a lot in all 3 of them. Their defense has played really well in all 3 of them. They scored 4 times in the first quarter. Simeon Reichenbach, Reese Oswald, Isaac Oswald, and I'm sorry, Ole Stefanchuk. Probably got pretty close on that. All 4 of those guys scored, and those were 4 guys who burned the first couple of teams they played. Oswald had 149 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He's played so well at the quarterback position this year. And Loudon Huizinga, 28 yards and 2 touchdowns on the grounds. That's how you know you give it to the big guy and you let him score. So Waco 60, HLV 14, and Waco's looking pretty darn strong.
Yeah, you kind of look at these stats and you're like, how are they putting up 60 points? And it's like, well, then they had 3 interceptions in that, and we weren't at the game, but from my understanding, they were on their side on HLV side of the field a lot in that game. So I mean, a lot of people talk about Simeon Reichenbach, and he didn't even play a lot in that game.
Yeah.
And you just look at that and you're like, man, this this Waco team's tough, and they're rated number 2 for a reason. So
yeah, sometimes when you win by so much, your starters are only playing just over half the game before they got to take a rest. So that does ruin stats sometimes. But you got another big performance here coming up, Columbus and Highland. Tell us about that one.
Well, I kind of mentioned last week, Columbus has kind of flown under the radar, but they're making some noise now. This is their 3rd straight win here. 55-0 over Highland. Obviously, Highland got them pretty bad last year. I think Highland put up in the 70s or something like that. But it was all Columbus in this one, 55-0. Caden Amagon didn't play last week, and he showed out in this one. He rushed for only 5 times and rushed for 142 yards. So a big performance by him. And I remember you telling me he was a good athlete, and so we kind of see that here. Tristan Miller had 94 yards on 2 carries. It's like, man, this Columbus rushing attack's pretty dangerous. And then Riley Kalberg ended with 93 yards on just 2 carries. And the trio, all 3 of those players each finished with 2 touchdowns in that win. So, another big win, another win in the column for Columbus. And, and they can only keep going up, I guess, from here.
Yeah, well, I looked at their district on Beeson Moore, and they are definitely going to compete in that district. They could play the no passing the ball game, and they'd still do pretty well. Winfield Mount Union, they were number 10 coming into this week. They played over at Iowa Valley. This is a district game, by the way, for the 8-player teams. And they were a little short-handed.
Yep.
Cam Buffington played some defense, but he didn't play a lot of offense at all. They still scored 52. The problem was Iowa Valley put up 68. So, and if you looked at the schedules of both those 2 coming in, they both put up a lot of points.
Yep.
So that is 100. Quick math here: 120 points.
Imagine scoring 52 points and losing.
Yeah, I know. I didn't score 52 points for my entire football career, middle school to high school.
Middle school to high school.
WMU led a couple different times in that one. And Cole Milks had another good game. He had almost 200 yards. He had over 200 yards total offense. Eli Miller ran for over 100. Abram Edwards ran for 83, so they did a lot on the ground there. But 2-1 now for Winfield Mount Union, and they got to try and bounce back if they want to get back into the district championship fight.
Yeah. Moving on here, we have Cardinal played Central Lee. Kind of knew that one was going to be a battle. Obviously, don't know a lot about Central Lee, but they're kind of down in that Lee County area. So ended up being a 34-14 win for Central Lee. So Cardinal still searching for their first win in the season. Obviously, they lost that big senior class. So the Comets are fighting hard, and they just keep working. They'll get there eventually, but it's going to take some work after losing those guys. Those kids that have been in that program for 4 years. So just tough loss for the Comets in that one.
Yeah, it was a tough loss for the Comets, and it was a tough one for Van Buren County in this little battle they had with Davis County. The last few years, Davis County's got the most of them. Van Buren County certainly gave them a game. 26-14 Davis County. Mustangs are pretty darn good this year. Jackson Manning finished with 291 yards passing and a couple of touchdowns. So he is so dynamic in every sport, and he was running around there. I still think that Van Buren County is one of the more dangerous teams. They got a lot of seniors, Manning and Duncan, and they are probably going to make some noise in the district. But Davis County, they just have their number. When I was in school at Davis County, it wasn't quite as good. All of a sudden, they They are a power in a few different boys sports. So Davis County 26, Van Buren County 14, another loss for one of our teams.
And I'll say, that Jackson Manning Anthony Duncan connection's pretty good. You see that 11 receptions for 268 yards.
Yeah, 268 for one person. That is pretty good. That is pretty darn good.
Yeah. But, moving on, we got Pekin playing Alburnett, and obviously Alburnett took down, North Lynn last week. So, 2 weeks ago, I guess. But, they're the real deal. It was a 42-0 win for Alburnett in that one. Tough for Pekin in that one. Obviously, that team's one of the perennial teams up in Class 1A with, taking down North Lynn, because we know North Lynn's been, stout in pretty much every sport. But Luke Long led the Panthers. I know we've called his name a lot. He just had 23 yards on 15 carries, so don't know much about Alburnett, but obviously they have a pretty stout defense if they're, allowing just 23 yards to probably, one of Pekin's best ball carriers and best all-around athletes.
Yeah, one of our best all-around athletes. Alburnett was there. I should have checked that out. I put in the rankings today. By the way, exact rankings will be out. And tomorrow, Southeast Iowa Union, they usually come in Wednesday because of Labor Day. They're a day late. I should have checked to see if Alburnett bounced up into the rankings. They were getting votes, and they were getting votes for me personally. Yep. I had them up pretty high, but they weren't quite in there.
Well, East Buchanan was rated number 1, I think, and they got beat by North Lynn. So
yeah,
I saw. So
that's a little crazy.
Going off a little topic there, but shaking up the 1A rankings there.
Well, it's in our matrix with Highland and Pekin and everybody else. So that's it for the high school games. There was a college game on Saturday, and it was a crazy one down in St. Louis. Missouri Baptist is kind of funny. They're in St. Louis, but they say that they're in Creve Coeur, Missouri, wherever it was. It went to 4 overtimes, Hunter. 25-23 Missouri Baptist, because in the third and fourth overtime, it's 2-point conversion tries. Iowa Wesleyan had a Zach. I haven't had to say his name yet. I'm going to call him Zach Chevalier because he's hopefully going to drive through some of their opponents. It was his first day as QB1. He had a couple of late touchdown passes in that, but 25-23. Wesleyan was able to score a touchdown late in that to force overtime, and then they forced double overtime, I think, with a passing touchdown there in the first overtime. Missouri Baptist missed 7 field goals in that game, but they snuck in there. I thought that Iowa Wesleyan got a little bit gypped on one of those overtimes. Quarterback slid right at the line. Usually they say you're giving them up, and that would have that was, I think, in the first 2-point conversions, that would have given Iowa Wesleyan the lead because they had scored right there in the third quarter. But so a tough one for Iowa Wesleyan. They're 0-2, and they're another one of those teams that have played 2 really close games. So well, that's all for our area football, and that means it's time for everyone's favorite part of the day when you get to watch the commercials. So here we go. We will be back in 30. Welcome back, everybody, to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Live. Thanks for sticking around those 30 seconds. And a reminder before we jump into other sports, Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. If you're watching this live, you probably know that because it's 2:20 right now. So on YouTube, that's Washington Live's YouTube page, Washington Live's Facebook page, Mount Pleasant Live, MT, not MOUNT, YouTube page, Facebook page, and Fairfield Live. Facebook page. So that's Fairfield, Mount Pleasant, Washington Live Facebook pages. And the YouTube, and if you follow us on @Union Sports page, not only do we pin this thing so you can watch it right from the Twitter, the YouTube link, but we got scores Tuesdays, Thursdays, volleyball, cross country. Fridays, we try and get every single football score in by the end of the day. So follow us @Union Sports page if you don't already, and you can comment about the show. But speaking of stuff to comment about, we had some volleyball last night, and let me check my little cheat sheet here to make sure. Yes, we're going to talk about Fairfield and Fort Madison.
Things are heating up in the Southeast Conference, right?
Yeah, and you got to cover the now tied for first place Fairfield Trojans.
Well, Fairfield took on Fort Madison. Fort Madison was still searching for their first win, and Fairfield was kind of one of those top teams in the Southeast Conference. We saw it last year. We're seeing it again this year. To start, it was a little tough matchup for the Trojans in that one. I'll just kind of jump, near the end there. The first set there, Burlington, sorry about that. Fort Madison held a 22-17 lead, and it was looking, the Trojans' backs were against the walls there, and then basically Fairfield didn't waver, scored 6 unanswered. Next thing you know, it's 23-22 Fairfield, and then they end up taking that first set 25-23. Second set, much of the same, except this time it was a little bit earlier in the match. The Bloodhounds got up 13-17. Well, about when they got into the 20s, they tied it up 4 times, changed score 4 times, and once again, Fairfield was able to pull it out 25-21, and then in the third set, Fairfield kind of pulled it together and pretty much dominated that last set, 25-12, and another big win for the Trojans. They're now tied with Keokuk 2-0 and the top of the conference there, and sophomore Lily Bergeron had a great showing in that one. She's the only sophomore in the varsity squad there. Mm-hmm. She had a team of 8 kills. Macy Rayburn followed with 5. Rowan Terrell, Addison Farrell, and Maddie Jones each finished with a pair in that one. And so another big win for the Trojans in that one. And, like I said, conference is heating up, and we're going to see how that's going to play out. Obviously, we've got some more SEC games next week, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of conference heating up, I was in W Town, Washington last night. They had a game with Keokuk. Washington came in 1-0. Keokuk came in 1-0. So whoever won that was going to be tied with Fairfield. And spoiler alert, if you just rewind about 10 seconds, we said that Fairfield and Keokuk are tied. So Keokuk scored a comeback 5-set win last night over Washington. It was a roller coaster, and I think I texted you about midway through the second set and said I'm going to be home by sundown because Washington rolled them in the first set. Keokuk was bamboozled by Washington's mixture of old and young on the front line there. They won the first set 25-14. They're up 8-2, I believe, in the second set. And it was kind of one of those things where I think everyone, relaxed a little bit, and all of a sudden, Keokuk caught fire. So shout out to, Keokuk's got some good athletes. The Alt-Gibbers up there are good athletes at the front of the net. Some tall girls. They put on a double block. Here I am pretending I can really get into that coach's brain as far as volleyball strategy, but it was like the blink of an eye. It was different. Keokuk came back set 2, 25-20, set 3, 25-18. Washington was able to hunker down a little bit, and they took set 4, 25-21, and then set 5, Keokuk had a 4-point lead a couple different times. Washington scraped back. I thought that Ruby Whitoff, their libero, made a great play. It was 14-12, and she made a diving dig. It looked like the game was over. Popped it up. That set up Macy Williams for a kill that cut the lead to 1. And then the very next play, Keokuk just happened to find some space in the back there. And I think if Washington would have scored that, they very well should have pulled that out and won. But it was tough because, I thought Washington had the win in the bag, and Keokuk's clearly scrappy. They beat Fort Madison, and they beat Washington now, so they're 2-0. A couple of stats from there. Ella Greiner had 8 kills. Alex Murphy and Leighton Messinger had 7 kills apiece. Messinger also had 29 digs, and this is my first time watching her play volleyball because you had gotten a couple Washington, and she can jump out of the gym already for a freshman.
Yep.
Washington has a lot of good freshmen, sophomores coming through that program, so Coach Aaron Six has a lot of talent to work with. So it might have just been one of those situations last night where it's a young team and you got to learn to win, and you saw another 5-set loss on Thursday.
Yeah, basically kind of the same roller coaster ride in that one. The Demons took on Mediapolis, and that first set it was real tight. Ended up being a Washington 25-23 win, and then from then on out it was one team was playing their best and the other team wasn't, and kind of that seesaw effect back and forth. Washington lost the second to Mediapolis 25-14, won the third 25-16. Meepo bounced back 25-14, and then in the final set of the night, the fifth set of the night, the winner go home, shall we say? It was all Mediapolis 15-6. So another non-conference tough loss for Washington, but we've seen signs of what they're capable of. Obviously, they beat Fairfield once, and just talking about the SEC conference, it's pretty amazing like how close I guess
Everybody
how talented everyone is, and how closely that battle for the conferences is going to be, because anybody can play their best on any given night, and we've seen these teams go in and beat the other ones. So really it's kind of a toss up. I mean, obviously Keokuk and Fairfield are sitting at 2-0 right now, but that could change it at a moment's notice. So
sitting the catbird seat. Is that what people call it? They're in the catbird seat, I think. Number one right now. Another SEC game last night. Mount Pleasant was at Burlington, and this is the second time that Mount Pleasant has taken the first set from Burlington this year, and the second time that Burlington's been able to storm back. The Panthers beat Burlington that first set 25-17, and Burlington took the next three, 25-20, 25-17, and 25-17. So the two-time defending champions now are 0-2 with a couple of losses, one to Fairfield and one to Burlington. So that was a tough one. They played Burlington in a tournament earlier this year, so that one didn't count as far as the league is concerned. And remember that technically a lot of these don't count as much until you get to the tournament at the end of the year. But so a couple teams starting to squeak ahead a little bit, Fairfield and Keokuk, and Mount Pleasant's tied with Fort Madison right there at 0-2, and then everybody else is 1-1. But we have some big games coming up next week and next Tuesday in that conference as well. And we had some other big small school volleyball games.
State ranking, I guess team, or I guess top teams in the state playing, and some teams were thrown around in the rankings because of it.
So we had New London and Holy Trinity, and you got to kind of write that one up. And so what did you see there?
Well, obviously New London, Holy Trinity in volleyball, those two teams have been kind of went at it in the Southeast Conference, especially during my time in school and before that. So New London swept the Crusaders. Obviously, they were previously number 1. Now they're number 8 in the rankings. They did lose to Notre Dame as well, but basically the Tigers won 27-25, 25-17, and 25-22. And kind of because of that win, now New London's up inside the top 15 in the state for Class 1A. So huge win for the Tigers in that one. And I know Holy Trinity dealing with some injuries and stuff like that. And people have been talking about that, but I mean, Holy Trinity is a perennial program in this area for volleyball. So, I mean, win's a win.
Win's a win. I thought the New London was going to come out and you were going to say something like, can't make excuses, New London. Anyway, nope. But that's a big one for New London. I mean, that's one of those rivalries. It's our best, probably our best small school, volleyball rivalry as far as one of our teams versus one of the teams that they play. I'm going to rattle through some of the other winners last night because we're getting pretty late in the show here. Winfield Mount Union 3-0 over Columbus. They started the season ranked. They are out. They dipped out a little bit. We'll see if they can climb back in. Waco 3-0 against Lone Tree. Pekin, first win of the year, 3-1 over Hillcrest Academy in another battle of area teams. Highland dropped 3-1 to Wapello, and Van Buren County fell on straight sets 3-0. Danville takes out Van Buren County. So a few of our teams getting wins and a few of our teams getting losses, and it's just heating up here in the local conferences here.
Right.
So now we're going to jump into cross country, and we had some runners. The last couple of weeks cross country started a little later, so we didn't have a ton, but we had some Trojans and some Demons and some others and some meets. So how'd that all go this weekend?
Yeah, and I'll just run through it real quick. As you said, we're kind of pressing time here. So Washington boys and girls are both at the Bob Brown Invitational, which is hosted by Iowa City Regina. The girls finished 6th place, and the boys finished 8th. Leading the girls was Iris Dahl. She took 5th place overall. She ran 21 minutes, 11 seconds. Quincy Griffiths placed 17th, and Olivia Anderson placed 38th. For the boys, Micah Reese, I know we got a chance to talk to him last year's state meet. Real good kid. Seems like he's showing out in cross country early. He was a top 3 finisher. He ran 17 flat for 3rd overall, and then Andrew Reese finished 30th, and Tyler Alden was 32nd. So, those the Demons showing out a little bit here early in the season cross country. And I know you said we've talked about that they have a pretty good team going on both sides of that card there. Yeah,
they're the team that's really rising. So Mike Reese has really put up some eye-popping numbers. He's broken his PR already this year, so looking pretty good.
Yeah, and then we had 4 area teams up at the Pekin Invitational on the boys' side. Danville, New London picking up right where they left off. They took the title on the day with 27 points. Fairfield was 4th with 114. Pekin scored 182. And Van Buren Van Buren was 8th overall, and sorry, forgot to mention that Pekin was 7th in that one. And for the girls, Pekin continuing their hot streak here early on the girls' side, they finished first with 46 points. Fairfield was third with 68. Danville, New London 5th with 119. Cardinal followed with 179. And Van Buren also competed, but they only had 2 runners, so they couldn't tally a team score in that one. So Danville, New London was led by A.J. Bonison. He finished first overall, and then Ryland Martin, New London kid, finished third. Fairfield was led by Nate I'm going to mess up his name.
Yep.
Conazol, I think that's how you say it. He was 15th. Right. Riley Perkins was 18th. For Pekin, Brady McWhirter. Yep, McWhirter. Messing up all the names. Finished 6th. For Van Buren, Lincoln Bainbridge was 12th. For the girls, Chloe Glosser. I know we've talked about her and how she's already kind of a little stud runner. She finished first overall with a time of 19 minutes and 18 seconds. Lauren Stiegler was third. Brooke Miller finished 6th. And Audrey Ferris was 7th, so a lot of top place finishes for the Pekin girls in that one. Carly Seeley led Fairfield. Led Fairfield with an 8th place finish. Melina Bloomquist was 17th. For Danville, New London on the girls' side, Elena Gurley was 2nd overall, and then Cameron Sherwood finished 11th, and Cardinal also competed in that. Ava Farrell finished 20th for them. That was the top time for them. And then for Van Buren girls, Riley Phillips finished 30th. So, some of our smaller schools showing out there. Obviously, the Danville, New London, kind of common name there. Pekin girls have been great for a few years now, and then obviously Washington showing out too, and Fairfield's right up there with them too. So a lot of excitement coming from our cross country schools there.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of probably an upper amount of teams that could be making some state noise. And speaking of Mount Pleasant and Mid Prairie, we're in Pella. And this was split. The races weren't, but it was split as far as small schools and big schools in the standings. And Mid Prairie brought home a double championship. The Mid Prairie girls, of course, defending state champions and just all around, dominant cross country force. They won. There were 5 teams in the small school rankings. They scored 20 points. Again, cross country amateurs. You're trying to go low. Second place was Pella Christian, 66 points. So that's a 46-point victory for the girls. And then the boys went 34. Pella Christian was second with 49, so that's a 15-point victory for Mid Prairie. Danielle Hostetler had another huge run for the Mid Prairie girls. She was the best small school runner there. Abby Fleming was second. They had 4 in the top 5, and I think every single one of them finished top 14. So 7 of the top 14. Pretty darn good. And the Mid Prairie boys also obviously had some pretty high runners in the standings. Emmett Schwarzendruber, and I said that really fast, so I couldn't possibly get it wrong, took second in the small school boys at 17 minutes, 25.4 seconds. Jay Schioter was 5th. Nathan Wallington was 8th, and Blake Creed was 9th. And Preston Yetzi was 10th, so that is stacked top 10 for Mid Prairie. Mount Pleasant on the girls' side, Mount Pleasant girls weren't all there. I think they were a little short-handed, but let's see, they were led by Emma Welcher, a freshman there, 22 minutes and 16.3 seconds. Audrey Lord finished 22nd for them. Ella McNamee 31st. And then on the boys' side for Mount Pleasant, and they finished 7th, by the way. The Panthers' top runner was Ben Carthy. He got 15th. Jude Dykstra, another freshman, got 31st. That was his first year, so another good performance from our freshman cross-country runners. And I said the boys got 7th, the girls got 6th for Mount Pleasant, and the boys. That's in the big school, and that's out of 7 teams. So, they're off and running, and they'll be off and running in Fairfield on Thursday. A lot of our teams are going to be out there, so come to Waterworks Park. That's all we have for the prep sports. I have to ask you, Hunter, because it is Cy-Hawk week, and we do have to get our predictions out there.
Yeah.
Who do you got in Iowa State? You got a score prediction for me?
Well, I went to school at Iowa, so I want to say Iowa. But if they play no bias allowed. Yeah, if they play like they did this last week, I think they're going to get crushed because.
Crushed. There we go.
Just because Iowa State took care of business in their first game of the season there. So
you got a score prediction?
I'm going to say
the people want a score prediction.
I'm going to say since the offense is not hasn't been working at all. I'm going to
Yep.
say 21 to. I'm just going to go 21-14. That's
21-14 Iowa or Iowa State?
Iowa.
21-14 Iowa. All right. I'll price this right.
And
now.
Iowa always seems to show up when they play Iowa State.
Yeah,
so,
I'm going to go
whatever.
20-14. I'm going to price this right. Yes. So
All right.
take the defense 20-14. So that's Saturday. We've got a packed weekend of sports. Obviously, Thursday there's cross country and volleyball. Friday there's high school football. Saturday, Iowa Westlane's got another road game. So it's a crazy time of year,
Yeah.
and we thank you for joining us here at Union Sports Live. Thank you to our sponsors, our watchers, our listeners,
yeah.
everybody. I believe we have the fall 2022 athletic magazines out. This is Washington's. As you see the beautiful Washington orange there. They all look pretty, whether it's orange, or maroon
Yeah,
gold. So pick these up. These should be around at the offices, and also hopefully they'll be handed out at the home sporting events very soon. Read them, look at the pictures. If there's a mistake in these, do not tell us, please.
Yeah.
I do not want to know if there's a mistake in these. So we tried our best, and we
lot of work.
stayed up all night, did a lot of work on these things in the fall sports tab. So if you see a mistake in these, do not tell us. But what you should do is tell all your friends to tune into Southeast Iowa Union Sports Live on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, and you can always catch the replay on Washington Live YouTube, Fairfield, Mount Pleasant, and Washington Live Facebook. So for Hunter Moeller, I am Andy Krutzinger, and see you later.
We're out.